If you like a good murder mystery story, you'll love June's Journey, a free hidden object mobile game where Detective June Parker unravels the mystery of her sister's death. Travel back to the beautifully illustrated 20s, find clues, discover hidden objects, and watch the story unfold with new chapters released weekly. Put your detective skills to the test. Download June's Journey on Android or iOS, or play online via Facebook Games.
CarMax is putting peace of mind back in car shopping by putting you in the driver's seat to find a ride that's right for you. Because at CarMax, we believe you shouldn't just settle for a car. You should love your car. That's why every car we sell is CarMax certified quality, so you can be sure with upfront pricing that's the same for every customer. So don't settle. Find love at first drive and start shopping now at CarMax.com. CarMax, the way car buying should be.
I normally find bras to be so uncomfortable and constricting, but Skims has changed that. You know I love Skims underwear, so I finally tried their bras, and Skims has delivered again. Skims bras are worth the hype for the amazing shape and support they give, but what I wasn't expecting was how comfortable they are too. I've tried so many bras in the past, and the main issue that I have is that they weren't supportive enough, to the point where they felt slouchy. I love my Skims wireless form bra because it's so comfortable and supportive. The older I get, the more I care about actually being comfortable in what I wear every day. And with my wireless form bra, I no longer have to sacrifice my comfort for the support I need. Shop Skims bras at skims.com, now available in 62 sizes, 30A to 46H. Plus, get free shipping on all orders over $75. If you haven't yet, be sure to let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows.
Hey everybody, it's Todd here, and I had to break in before the episode this week because this episode is coming out the week before our Panic Fest show on the 7th, and I have to apologize that I will not make it to the live show.
That's okay. Todd won't be there, but that's okay. Armando will be there with us,
Yeah.
trapped with us in an Airbnb. And we have a lot of awesome, fun stuff for the live show. We are going to have a fantastic good time. Mikey and I are going to go see as many movies as possible at Panic Fest because Todd doesn't always want to watch horror movies because he's Todd. That's like the whole point of the show.
Yeah, it's the whole thing.
I don't like them, guys.
If you're going to Panic Fest and seeing movies, you might also see Mikey and I around. So we will be there.
We're going to make it extra fun.
I am so fucking sad I'm not going to be there. You have no idea.
I'm going to make fun of Todd so much because he's not there to defend himself.
So it's going to be like a regular episode is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he can't edit it out.
Yeah. Can't edit it out now.
Anyway, enjoy this episode, and I apologize again. I'm so sorry. This episode was brought to you by the following patrons. Min, Sex Caliber Bones a Lot, Madeline, Edward, Sunzi, Alyssa, Vixen, Holly, Natasha, Laura, Boezy, Jeremy, Allie, Mr. Rage Bomb, Logan, Libby, Wes, Aaron, Kristen, Amy, Tia, Matthew, Jonathan, Isaac, and Karoon. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. And if you want to hang out with us, do so in the Facebook group, where we will be holed up in this mall daily.
No. I've got the laugh line. Are you all ready?
Here we go, guys.
All right.
A zombie walks into a bar, and then a pool table, and then a bar stool.
I do really like that.
Arcades pretty much sucked before the 80s, huh?
Nary a Donkey Kong in sight, my man.
No, none. Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin on Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys make me watch them. And this week, Mikey made us watch Dawn of the Dead. The original one. The
original, 1978.
Remake, we've done an episode on, although it's ripe for a revisit if y'all want, because I don't think Paige was on that one.
I wasn't, but I also vastly prefer this one to that one.
Agreed. Todd, I know you hate it. Okay, let me just unpack it. 'Cause Paige and I love this.
Go ahead. You unpack your emotional attachment to this movie.
Talk me through the nostalgia, baby.
This is the this creates the stereotypes that zombie and horror use a lot
Yeah,
from here
absolutely.
on forward.
I mean, I think that this definitely builds on the lore that like Night of the Living Dead started, right?
And I think that's what you're kind of missing. And I'm sure you're going to be like, pacing. It was the 70s. Everything took so long.
Pacing is the big issue, yes.
But this film had to take a long time to explain why zombies were bad and what they did and the lore. Like, it had to spell it out for people because people didn't know back then.
Yeah, this was the first that has a lot of this stuff in it. That's true.
Yeah, so like they had like American audiences, like they had to be like, oh, there's raiders. What would raiders do? And then they had to be like, what would the cities be like? And then what is science? Like all of this stuff has never been done before until it's done this way. And like I think this film is super important. I think it does a really good job with the protagonist of showing one, what is life now after this? And there's a whole metaphor for consumerism.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, like, I love the final question of this guy being like, is this worth even going on or not?
Yeah.
And then he decides to at the last minute. Love that.
I love when the A-Team music kicked in at the end. I was like, yes, he's going to make it out.
Yes, the soundtrack is not the strong suit.
I would argue that the soundtrack is the strong suit because it gets used over and over and over again in almost every famous zombie movie pulls at least one or two tracks from this film.
But like when it's like, let's secure them all, instead of being like a movie now would be like, this is all the stuff we had to do, and they just say it. This movie showed it because no one has even thought about it or done it as a concept in fiction. And if you like unpack that, that's pretty crazy. But I love the protagonist. Some of the stuff is aged, but I think the cities are terrifying. The picture that they're showing, people are fleeing out from the cities. I like what they did to the mall. The Raiders as a concept is cool. Flyboy is the most annoying character of all time. So he
You didn't like Steve.
No, Steve's the worst.
finally gets his comeuppance at the end.
I lost my mind before they get to the mall, but they're flying at this point. They land, and I think it's at one of the places they're getting gas for the helicopter.
Yeah.
They have to stop him from shooting 2 different times within like 2 minutes of runtime
Yes.
of the movie. It was so funny. Like, I laughed out loud. I was like, this guy sucks.
Yes.
He gets better,
He
but
does.
he still sucks because he kind of ends his own life, really.
Well,
Because
he's also a coward that never wants to do the hard things.
right until the end where he's like, I'm fighting for this mall, and the other guy's like, please.
Which, spoiler, sitting still would have been the hard thing. So he still doesn't want to do the hard things.
100%.
Oh, no. At the end of this movie, I thought he just lost his mind because he does the dumbest thing to do
Yes.
in that situation.
Peter is the Rick Grimes we deserved.
Yes.
Like, he is just a badass protagonist, and like it does things, and it does it like a prototype way. Like his friend from the SWAT team losing his shit early, and then that causes him to be like bit. Like, we see that in every zombie movie that comes after this. It's like one guy loses it, right? Puts everybody in
Right.
danger, but this guy kind of slowly does it on his mission, where he's like, oh, he's really into this, and then like 2 minutes later, you're like, this guy's gonna kill everyone accidentally because he's gone and crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. I love it. It's unpacked. I think this is a longer version than this felt like the director's cut.
Yeah, it was 2 hours and 19 minutes was the total runtime of the movie. Yeah. And it felt like it.
I love the film, but I do think the original cut kind of is a little smoother.
It's probably paced a little bit better. I don't know how long the original runtime is, but if it was...
The original runtime is still 2 hours and some change. So, like, it's really not as much extra as you would
I thought it was
think.
like 2 hours.
It's 2 hours and 7 minutes. So that's really only a difference of like 12 minutes. But you feel every 12 of them.
If you cut 12 minutes out to make the like theatrical cut, you still need to cut out like 20 minutes of it. It's still way too long.
I think you could cut 20 to 30 minutes out without cutting a single story point.
Same. It would be the montages.
It would be the montages.
And honestly, like, it really felt when we saw the Raiders, which, Mikey, I also thought were fucking cool. And Tom Savini legit is my favorite actor in this movie. Because
So fun.
I've seen him in movies. He usually has a line or two, but he like works in this movie as an actor. And he is like chewing scenery, and I love him for it. But in that scene, they show every motorcycle that showed up to that like
Yes.
that meet and greet or whatever. And like you only need to show me 3 motorcycles. I get it. They all have motorcycles. It's fine.
Well, and not only that, like, it just goes on for a long time where it's like they're destructive, they're grabbing things. Like, I get it. And there's a few really funny pieces in there, like the guy that picks up a TV and they're like, what are you going to watch on that? And he's like, you're right. And then just throws that TV at another TV.
Because they're basically worthless. Like, I love that too. Yeah.
Right.
They're the worst raters ever.
They're terrible at it. Some of those montages are absolutely meant to be an indictment of consumerism, particularly the last one. But by the time we get to that last one, we've had like 4 of them.
Yeah.
And we could have trimmed, and there's some just longer shots that we could have trimmed. And I think you would lose not a single line, and you could still cut like 20 minutes out.
This movie, I think, sort of crosses into pretty solid satirical camp. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's a very campy movie. The zombies look like they auditioned for Blue Man Group yesterday and have been unable to shower completely off.
Part of that is the color correction of this print, by the way.
That's fair, but that's the way it looked.
I love this version of zombies of like they're slow, they act like they died, like they're dumb. I like that. And then they're just like a creeping awfulness. Not fast zombies was a mistake.
Yeah. And I think the reason you like that is because then the zombie movie is not about the zombies per se. It's about what humans become when that happens. And the fast zombie movies typically are about how do we solve the zombie virus. And I think that your lane is more interesting.
Yeah, fast zombies are infection. Slow zombies are the nature of man. And this is the first movie to even examine that outside of Night of the Living Dead, which we already watched.
But this super expounds on that, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And movies had not done that before, by the way, except for like a couple Twilight Zone episodes. But then it wasn't zombies. It's usually aliens or other kind of apocalypses.
Yeah, 60s horror tropes.
Yeah, 60s horror tropes. But like this is the first movie that's like, is man the most dangerous part of zombies? Which I love. That I love exploring that.
The epic scope of this from Night to this is wild.
Yeah.
I do think the practical effects still hold up. The zombie bites look cool.
They do.
Look gross.
They do look like cake, though. And like a couple of them, and part of it is the color correction of this print. But every once in a while, they bite into somebody's shoulder, and it's clearly white latex, and it looks kind of like frosting.
Yeah.
So every time it happened, I was just like, is it cake? Is it cake?
And to go on the nostalgia, this movie did play a lot on the background when I was a child.
Of course.
They played it a lot on TV before all the copyrights got weird. But, I mean, it was always a cool one to just jump into. And then, like, this film is what created zombies for me. Like, this is the film where all of that is filtered through. All of my Legos had zombie apocalypses, all of the toys, all of the things. And it's because this movie would be on in the background or whatever. It taught me the rules of zombies. It taught the world
it taught everybody the rules of zombies.
I mean, it wasn't the first movie to feature zombies, but it does seem like it invented sort of what modern zombies are. At least the
100%.
slow, like maybe the more modern version would be like the Walking Dead type zombies, right?
Yeah.
It's more that lane. But yeah, I think you're right. I didn't hate the film, guys. I feel like you guys expected me to hate this movie.
I did not say it, but I knew you'd have problems with the pacing, but that's fine.
I expect you to hate the film. I'll say it.
There were great credits, though. They got right into it. Anyway, go
I
ahead.
was going to say that. I love the way this kicks off. It's at like...
This has one of the best cold opens I've ever fucking seen in a movie. It's amazing.
I know. We are not pre-apocalypse. We're not post-apocalypse. We are in apocalypse.
In the apocalypse.
That is where we are when this kicks off. And like, we're seeing like, not just the breakdown of like society as a whole. We're seeing like what it would be like at your office if this shit was happening, if your office was a TV station. And that shit is like interesting and fun to like be a fly on the wall for. I loved it.
Yeah.
I love that society breaks down, but there's also like the government still exists and like police still exist, the army.
Yes.
And they're trying to do stuff.
It's just not here where we are.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, and they're like, we don't want to go with them because that was terrible. And I threw up after we had to murder all those people in a building or whatever.
Well, and we've stolen a helicopter. Do laws still matter? Like that's a huge question.
No.
Which I would argue probably not.
No, they don't.
No, but this movie has a whole thing of how much do you compromise yourself and your values before you lose your humanity? That is a huge theme in this movie.
Yeah, when Peter's in the helicopter at the beginning, like, we're the bad guys, and I'm from a modern lens, I'm like, what?
No, I actually think that's very...
But he makes a good point.
He makes a great point, and they build on it as the movie goes. I think that's one of my most interesting themes in this movie, and I think one of the ways this one excels far beyond the remake.
I'll say that I think this is one of the best 70s movies I've ever seen.
Sure.
But no, in my opinion, that's a very small bar to clear.
No, this probably is, I mean, at least to me, the best 70s movie.
Yeah, I can't think of one that I like better than this.
Probably not horror films.
I'm pretty sure Rocky Horror Picture Show came out in the 70s, so that's my favorite. And then maybe this. Both are horror related. But the only thing I really didn't like about this movie was the pacing. So, like, if you take that criticism out of it, which does sort of ruin a movie for me, candidly, like, I really hate it when you treat me like this in a movie. And I do think we gotta, like, be forgiving, because, like, this movie was made almost 50 years ago, you know?
But this problem is happening more today.
Well, I'm not saying that the commentary still isn't hyper relevant. It starts off with a commentary on, like, police brutality, and we're still talking about that shit.
No. I'm talking about movies are fucking long right now.
Yeah, no, he's right. Movies are too fucking long right now. It was not purely the 70s.
And I feel like I mean, I did grow up in the 90s, so I feel like that's probably a lens. But
right?
90s, early 2000s, when everything was 90 minutes and just like lots of slow-mo. But then like every movie I see now is like 2.5 hours long. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the movie was about Jesus Christ.
I love the life of Brian.
But Todd, you're saying, yes, the pacing is a valid criticism. It can make the film less rewatchable.
Yeah.
But that said, you still did enjoy the film today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the points it was making. I really did. It because it speaks a lot to like shit we're still dealing with, and like how once you have some safety, you try to go about just your normal life, even though the world around you is collapsing. Like there's a lot in this movie that I think is like so beautifully exposed, but there's also moments where it's like Flyboy and Fran are like laying in bed holding a like pose that shows like there's strife in the household, and it like zooms out in this like really 70s faux artistic
and it
shot.
took forever.
Like,
yes.
what are we doing? So it's like some of it is very like, I'll say pandery, but I also feel like that is very of the time. That is the way movies are at that time.
Yeah, I don't think it was unusual for the time.
Me either. And I don't think it's fair for me to be like someone who grew up way after the culture of this movie was prevalent to be like, I hated it because it was like that. Like, I don't think that's fair commentary. So outside of the pacing
I do think
stuff,
Night of the Living Dead is a tighterly paced.
I agree. But I'm not necessarily talking about pace with this. I'm talking about the way they talk down to the viewer because they assume you don't understand what you're seeing on screen. And I do think that was just a lot of like really showing and telling at the same time. That was almost like the actor looking directly at the lens and being like, when I'm saying, what have we done to ourselves? I'm not really talking about, did we lock ourselves in the mall? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but I also think that some of this comes down to the literal tools they had. I think movies are shot different and cut tighter no matter what. Even if it is too long and has pacing issues, we just cut tighter because we have the ability to. We have completely different tools than they did.
When this movie came out, they were literally cutting film. Like, that's how different the technology is. Yeah, absolutely, Paige.
Yes. I think in many ways, films like this that are utilizing a horror or a different story to tell a more social commentary story, fewer and far between at the time. And I think they have to be like, also, horror did not have the respect that it does today for that kind of storytelling. And so they really have to, at the time, be like, I'm not talking about the fucking mall. I am talking about the downfall of humanity.
No, Paige, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it's fair for me to be like, I don't like this movie because it was made in the 70s. And like to have that be like real criticism, you know? Like,
but I mean, like, you have to have your Peter come up, take his mask off, and be like, no, this is racist.
I know.
Yeah, this was super racist. That's why I murdered a guy. We all cheered.
Does anyone have a problem with it?
And like, anybody got a fucking problem with me murdering the worst guy?
He's basically looking into the camera.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what I'm saying. So like for me, who was like, I grew up in the 90s, more or less. Like, for
Right.
me to, like, look back at this movie that wasn't made for me and to be like, I don't like that it
Right.
wasn't made for me feels weird. So, like, I'm going to forgive it. Its trespasses on the pacing and stuff that is, like, quintessentially 70s. And the, like, sort of pandering-ish of it, the way it feels to me with my sensibilities today, that's not a problem with the movie. They did a good job with the movie. They needed to do those things.
Yeah, or because without those, we didn't get the ones we have.
Exactly, because they built that up to where, like, I don't need to know that they should kill the racist guy in movies now. Like, that would have been done so much faster now because you would have been like, oh, he's the villain. But, like, when this movie was made, a lot of people in the theater would have recently been using the words the racist was using. And, like,
Yes.
so you do sort of have to do a lot to, like, get your audience at that time to understand what's happening. So I get it.
Yes. However, I found myself while watching this film, because I had not watched this since before the pandemic, especially in the early parts of the film where they're at the TV station, people are freaking out, having like COVID flashbacks
Oh,
and
yeah.
being like,
Yes.
holy shit, like we lived through part of this. Like that's exactly how it happened.
Going to work during lockdown, or it'd be like, I would just like ride with cops. We'd all be wearing masks. We would play It's the End of the World as we know it as we're driving around. No one's out. And I'm just like, oh man, I'm in the apocalypse. I thought I'd survive, but here I am like riding with the man or whatever.
I mean, it did sort of give me like COVID lockdown, specific during lockdown flashbacks. You know what I'm saying? Like when the stores are out of toilet paper, like flashbacks, like that time period of COVID lockdown.
Yeah, like first 2 weeks.
Yeah, because
like
that felt
early
very end of the
lockdown.
world.
I think that they also make really interesting choices of like who survives how, right? Because I also feel like everyone and their brother is like, oh, I could totally survive, but what does that look like for individual people? So if you're like, yeah, traffic copter guy grabbed his girlfriend, you're like, oh, hey, he's got a helicopter, but then he doesn't have anything else. So like, what do you even do for the rest of it?
Geez, Paige, what a girl. You were hard to please. You hear that, Todd? She goes, he has a helicopter, but nothing else.
They don't even have fuel for the helicopter.
I think what's funny is the transformation of the sexual desirability of Flyboy as the breakdown of society happens and his skills are no longer valuable.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that is right, but I am saying that that is probably accurate.
He was no longer cool when he fell asleep flying the helicopter.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying that like, I don't think his girlfriend is like trying to hook up with anybody else. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, like the way the movie paints that character is what I mean.
Oh, I think her and Peter will bang.
Yeah.
Well, I think you see a transfer in the way their relationship starts from when they meet in the helicopter and she is suspicious of him and nervous to her holding the helicopter to make sure he gets on. Like that is their arc of you can't have prejudices in the ends of the world because literally it is whoever you can trust next to you for the period of time that you can trust them.
Which, Todd, Paige's point goes to when they cut to the scientist who basically was like, there are no divisions anymore.
Yes.
If you're alive, we're together.
I know.
Right. And if you're not alive, it's time for us to fucking kill you and stop being pussies about it.
Yeah. I do love, okay, maybe we should just like jump into the movie so we can go through it, see my
Wait,
scene.
I didn't get to talk about
Well,
Wait,
you've been talking more than anybody.
No, you have. I just popped in a couple times, but I never got to.
Go for it.
I literally said like four things about the movie.
Todd, when you listen back, this is going to be hilarious. You talked for like 6 straight minutes.
I also talked a lot, but I love this film.
So, as I mentioned, this film is an allegory for consumerism as well as commentary on racism and other political things at the time, which I think is something that the newer one misses, right? Because we have some things that carry over this version to new version in different ways. And by new version, I'm referring to the Zack Snyder version, which we have already done. But even things like when they discuss whether or not she should keep the baby, think about that in the context of the people watching this movie at the time. This was in 1978. Roe v. Wade was only 5 years before that. And so it's her arc of like, am I a good person? Will I compromise? Should I bring someone into what is ultimately the end of the world and would be terrible for them? And it's kind of an indictment of the audience of like, what do you think? Like, at what point do you change the way you think of things? versus in the new one, it's just a lady who has a baby during the apocalypse, and they're like, wouldn't it be fucked up if the baby was a zombie? And I'm like, you're missing the whole nuance of why we include this. This movie gives every single character an arc of, what do you think your moral code was? When does that change for you? And does that impact whether or not you view yourself as an air quotes good person? And at what point in the story does that change? I think Peter's is really interesting because he switches in the very beginning. Even though he kills that guy who's a racist, where we all were like, kill that guy.
Yeah.
He has to kill all those people in the basement. It still doesn't sit right with him. His moral code changes in the helicopter.
Yeah.
Where he's like, we are the bad guys. And in a way that frees him from a lot of the emotional attachments that ensnare the rest of the characters. But then you've got Flyboy. When does his change? When does Fran's change? When does Rogers change? And I think that's really interesting to look at in the context of who, and that's the tagline of the movie, who will survive and what will become of them. What happens to you when you are forced to potentially make the most selfish decisions? But then on a macro scale, what happens to society when society is reduced to the most selfish decisions? And then to look at it in the lens of consumerism today and saying, this is a system that has conditioned you to constantly make selfish decisions that are not in anyone's best interest, as typified by Fran at multiple points saying, why are we staying here? Let's just take what we need and go. But then everyone is tied to it being like, well, we could take more though. Like we could take as much, we're here, we have everything. We could just constantly hoard the resources as opposed to just taking what we need and going. And then again, when the zombies are there just walking around the mall, it's like, well, yeah, they didn't know what else to do. This was all they did, was wander around and look at new shiny things to have because we're the zombies, which is why Peter says they're not different. They're us. Like, and he's exactly right.
You're right. Everyone has an arc. I think Rogers is super interesting too, because he goes from like Billy Badass, the policeman, to like going nuts and not holding his shit together because he has nothing holding him on anymore.
Yeah. And to being like, please kill me. Like if I don't want to walk around aimlessly.
And I think Peter thought this was worthless in and then the helicopter he thinks he's the bad guy, but I think by middle film he's like, there are no bad guys, they're just people.
Yes, exactly. There are just people making the choices they can make in the moment, but you have to then determine how that sits with you and how you're going to live with it. Because even when they clear the mall out, they all have kind of a weird feeling about clearing the mall out. And that's admittedly for them to be safe and live there. But then they're like, well, who did we get rid of so we could safely live here? Like, those are the layers this movie is dealing with, that the newer one is just like, it's a bunch of people in a scary mall. It doesn't even really get into.
No, the newer one is yeah, it's not like that.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
But it is a good action. It's a good action movie.
Sure.
I honestly think it's a great 2004 horror movie. Like, it's very much of that time.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I honestly feel like this is of this time.
Sure. Yeah. But personally, vastly prefer this one. Jake and I are seeing it in 3D next month. So that's going to be super fun.
I do think it's crazy that the gun store, it's like, they still had gun laws back in then that just had revolvers and hunting rifles at the gun store, not like just a bunch of machine guns and automatic weapons and Glocks and stuff.
Well, my favorite is at the end when he's fighting off that one zombie that has a gun from one of the raiders, and he like picks up the new gun and drops the old one, but he can't fire it. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he still is like, oh, newness.
It drove me crazy that he was still holding the gun that he took away from that guy months before. Like,
yes.
Has that zombie not eaten? He didn't need his hands at all, although we did see him climb a ladder while holding it, which is impossible. So like, it feels very campy.
We don't know if that's the one he took months before or if it's the one he took that night from one of the raiders. I think he takes it that night. But I think it purely exists for him to have a gun and then switch and be like, new gun is the best gun. New is always best.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
This definitely is a, like, talking about consumerism. That's one of the main themes for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, there we go. Yes, we can jump into the movie now.
Thank you. All I wanted to say with that was I love the way this kicks off because it's like
Oh, yeah.
immediate. And
Yeah.
I'll argue there's nothing scary happening, but there is a general sense of like tension and like creepiness.
The beginning scares me more than the rest of the movie.
It's wild to see the breakdown of society play out in an office type setting. And I also loved that it was also at a news organization, so they're like getting the most up to date things, like
Right.
I loved it. I thought it was a great cold open for this.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get right into it. So we open and literally the credits come up. You get one page of credits and then immediately the story starts. There's
Yeah.
some credits
Yeah.
overlaid, but not many. And remember, this is the 70s where they didn't do that. This was not normal. But we immediately start. We're in a newsroom and we're following who we will find out is Fran, but we don't know her. And one of the things about these scenes is that she's one of the producers for the newsroom. She's trying to get the most up-to-date rescue stations up so people know where to go. We learned that it's been 3 weeks since the outbreak and they're still scrambling to figure it out. They're having like a live interview with their Dr. Fauci.
And I love that it literally starts off with like their Dr. Fauci saying like,
Right.
Here's how we can go about eradicating this, not virus, but virus. It's the zombie thing, right?
Yeah.
So like from at this moment, everybody knows how we could beat it together. And
Right.
there's no way it's ever going to happen because people
Right.
be crazy.
Well, and people are too attached to it comes back to that, like, we have to be logical, we can't be emotional,
Right,
because
yeah.
people get too attached emotionally and will not let go of the fact that their loved ones are just gone.
Yeah.
But for me, it's kind of a cacophony. Like, we're hearing a bunch of different conversations at once.
I think it's pronounced kafefe.
Cafefe. She's walking through.
You're welcome, Mikey. I know if I can make Mikey chortle, it was a good joke.
We're walking through newsrooms as people are like shouting around her. And for me, the scariest thing is that people just start leaving.
Yes.
People just start leaving work. That's the scariest part because they're just like, no, you know what? I'm done. I gotta save myself. I don't even know what we're fucking doing here.
When the, I don't know, station operator runs down and is like telling her to put something back up on the screen and the camera operators are like looking up at him and they're like,
Yeah.
fuck you, we're leaving. This is bullshit.
Yeah, they just leave.
The world is fucked. You're not my boss. You're just the next zombie. I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, I love that shit. I was like, but it is like sort of scary. Like if that happened
Yes.
and you were at an office, I'd be like, am I going to fucking make it home? Like, this is insane, And is it even worth going home? Jesus. Like, that is such a scary thing to like witness and live through.
It reminded me of the last day in the office of COVID where I came to work in the morning because we were still in office at the time.
Yep.
I came to work in the morning and by 10:30, so we had just started our day, 10:30, they were like, take your laptops, take whatever you need. I don't know when you'll be back and leave the office right now.
Yeah. And don't sneeze on anybody on the way out.
Yeah, don't breathe on people.
Yeah.
And then literally on the way home, because I had a 2-hour commute. So like on the way home through like the radio and text messages, people are like, get to a fucking grocery store right the fuck now.
Yep.
Or else you will not have food for the next 2 weeks. So I didn't even go home. I went straight to the grocery store, which thankfully
That was smart.
work had like just paid out our bonuses or whatever. We just like lucked out on timing. And I just rolled up to the grocery store, 2 different ones, packed my car full of whatever I could fucking carry, essentially, and then got home. And then we did not leave our house for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, but it very much had that feeling of like, take your laptops and leave. And you're just like, what the fuck? It's okay. All right.
It's awesome.
I had a meeting, but I guess I don't anymore.
Yeah.
What's
like Zoom?
Yeah. Oh, done. Like literally they were like, consider all of your meetings canceled. Your customers will understand. And
Yeah.
you're just like, what?
Your
Like,
customers are also battling the apocalypse. Woo.
well, and we were a week early. So like, I don't know if you guys remember, well, probably not because we had not started doing this yet. I was out a week early where like I was home and I was like, I don't know, maybe California is just weird. And then everyone was home. And it was just like, well, oh, whatever.
I was hearing rumors from like federal law enforcement and police and stuff and like other like politicians like through work stuff where they're about to put the country on lockdown. There's going to be like curfew, like there's gonna be like, travel's restricted and all, like basically like military style quarantine. And I was like,
yeah. Oh shit.
And like I'm hearing the rumors and I was like, let me go to the grocery store. Like, and then like 4 days later they lock it down. I was like, guess I'm still headed to the office because I have to do my job. Great. But yeah, when those rumors started coming out of like they're gonna close the airports and like put military, like deploy National Guards in all the major cities and stuff, I was like, I hope they don't do that. That's a huge rumor. But like COVID turned out to be very serious, but not like movie Contagion serious, right?
Right.
But I think if we would have had a more serious situation, even though it was serious, not downplaying it, I think if people's like eyeballs were bursting and kids were like like there would be military everywhere, there'd be people in those suits on the streets and stuff, like we would have a nightmare situation.
Yeah, because what we do get into after this is essentially like a special task force to find zombies.
Yeah.
Like they aren't even in police uniforms. They're in like their own jumpsuit kind of
unmarked.
thing.
Yeah, I noticed
they're
that.
unmarked.
Which I think is sort of a commentary on police violence at that time, which is still going on.
There you go. But anyway, back to the TV studio. Fran is like, what the? People are just walking out. And her boyfriend, Flyboy, aka Steve, shows up and he's like, I've got the helicopter on the roof. Meet me there at 9 and we're getting the fuck out of here. And she's like, we're broadcasting until 12. And one of the guys walks past her and is like, not anymore. Emergency took over. And so it's like, get the fuck out. Fucking run. Like, go.
Yeah. I actually liked what he said because the guy who was the camera operator or whatever, who had that mic, who was like, Federal's taking back over, he said, our responsibility is finished, which I thought was very interesting.
Yes. And he repeats it twice.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting way of putting it. But I mean,
our responsibility is finished.
Yeah. So for like a few reasons, because part of the way they got the airwaves at the time was they said that they had to produce 1 hour of news every evening.
Right.
That's part of like the original agreement. But also their responsibility of like what? Like keeping the populace at bay, keeping the status quo intact, that kind of shit.
But also getting the emergency information out to them that
Sure. That's what they're saying in the scene. Yeah. But what's the subtext, baby?
Yes, is keeping them under control.
Yeah.
There is no more time for control. But I do love, because all of them in these early scenes have a moment where they're like, am I wrong to run?
Oh, I think we see all of them do that. Yeah.
Right.
Which I think is a very understandable thing. Like, when is it time to bail in the apocalypse?
Yes.
My thought is early, but like, I understand like why you might hesitate or like wait longer than you should.
Well, the pandemic taught me that I'm not going to bail soon enough.
No, Mikey, you will die.
You're dead,
you
dude.
will
I'm sorry.
absolutely die during the apocalypse, and only because you will be trying to help someone.
Oh,
you idiot.
I know.
You're too compassionate for an apocalypse, my man. And that's like a compliment.
But here's the other thing. In at least one instance, their compassion saves them.
True.
Because we'll get to it in just a little bit, but there's a question of who's going to get on that helicopter in the beginning. And had they not stayed for Roger and then by extension Pete, Fran and Steve would have died.
For sure.
So there's also this question of like, is it wrong to go? Am I bailing too early? But who do you miss if you bail? Like, what happens?
It's like one of those things that's like impossible to make the right choice. You just got to roll with it, and hopefully hopefully it works out, you know?
Right.
Because there's no way you can have enough information to make the right choice.
No, you just have to choose with whatever's in front of you, which is basically what they do. So she is going to join him in the chopper.
Which is like the whole thing this movie is trying to say, like, this is life, guys.
Yeah.
This is what life is. And if you get bogged down in consumerism, you're not focused on shit you should be focused on.
Right.
Which I really do love it.
Yeah.
Hated the pacing. Loved the movie.
You just cut it a little tighter. That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we cut to an unmarked militarized force, not maybe police, maybe something else. It is never 100% clear.
Definitely government funded.
Yes.
Yeah, like they are all wearing a uniform, but it's like an unmarked jumpsuit, you know?
Yes.
One of those kind of things.
I think it's multiple different government organizations that have now been like task forced to go do this.
They've been like nationalized or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Where they have to surround this building and they're going in to try and get all the bodies, basically collect any dead people that are there, shoot any zombies that are there, and evacuate the people that are there. And it's very, very clear early on that one of them is extremely racist based on the words he is saying. And again, this is something that George Romero tackled in Night of the Living Dead, right? Where we have a black protagonist, almost unheard of at the time, not only in horror, but in films in general. And we do have one again in this movie, because that is one of the themes that George Romero always tackles culturally, is racism and stereotypes. But they break in and shit goes sideways immediately. Not the least of which being crazy racist guy just starts shooting everyone, not zombies, not dead people, just everyone he comes across, just straight up murdering people. And Roger, who we will meet in this scene, is the only person to try and really stop him.
Yeah.
No one else tries to stop that guy.
Well, I mean, someone else does shoot him, who is quite clearly the hero of the scene. But yeah, like Roger like literally jumps on his back and is like trying to fight him from like murdering people who are not zombies. It's clear they're not zombies.
No, yeah, he just explodes the head of one random guy and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But there's a whole platoon, call it, of people there.
Yeah.
And Roger's the only one stopping this guy. And then until someone else is like, hold him and I'll shoot, basically.
Yeah.
Which does turn out to be Peter. And Peter, of course, is black. And most of the people in the building are black and brown people. And no one else was really going to get in between this guy's rifle and black and brown people, except for Roger, which is why Roger and Peter kind of end up together.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think Roger slowly starts to lose his mind and then eventually gets bit and dies. But like,
yeah, sure.
he starts off a hero in my eyes.
Yeah, Roger takes a hero role for the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes until he like kind of loses it based on all this. Like, if he has no one to help, what is he, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and also like, that would be a hard thing to go through. I would understand, like, you know, you're going to have a hard time with processing some of that. And he does.
Oh, yeah, of course. And we cut to, they have kind of made their way through the building now that that one guy is dead. And they're kind of in one of the lower floors. And Ken Faree, aka Peter, turns to Roger and is like, hey, you were in that guy's unit, right? And Roger just says, yeah, and I don't know how he died. I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
Basically, like, I would never turn you in. That had to happen. You did the right thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. So they share cigarettes until there seems to be a scratch at the door. Who comes through but a priest, an old priest, clearly sick, clearly dying. And he just says, many of them have died. They're in the basement. I've given them their last rites, which is all I can do for them. But you gentlemen right now have the chance to kill all of them to prevent more killing. So I suggest that you do that. And if you feel weird about it, understand that you are probably saving lives by doing it, which is like a hard conversation to have, but they're like, okay. And they strap up and walk down there.
Yeah.
And start shooting them one by one. And it clearly really bothers, specifically Peter. Peter is more bothered, I would say, but Roger too. And they're just like, well, this is fucked up that we had to do this, but hopefully it's in the scales of good and evil over time. Hopefully this falls on the good side.
And I have to say it just because, honestly, just because this movie did this long, very drawn out, very pointed beat that like we all, because of the movies that were inspired by this, like we get it.
Yeah.
If our parents became zombies, we'd shoot them in a heartbeat because movies have already trained us on this. So like I get that is like what this movie had to do to get us to where we are now.
Yeah, because that was not the case.
It is silly seeing it in the moment with modern sensibilities and not having grown up with this movie. I was like, this is such a dramatic way of doing this beat that like I've seen Shaun of the Dead make fun of so many times.
But Sean keeps his friend alive like this in the shed.
I know. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think that the movie relies heavily on the lore this movie set. So, like, you're going to see a lot of that kind of theme or those kind of themes.
But also, like, Peter specifically has, like, a religious thing with his grandfather being, like, voodoo practitioner. Well, he uses the real word, which I can't pronounce, so I won't try. Respect. And then, about, like, these are the dead and hell's filled up. And it just, I think he realizes, like, this is, like, I think he breaks at that moment.
Well, I think it's a little bit different because of something he says in the very next scene, because he has a machine gun. Like, he could have just gadded the whole room in a few minutes and been gone, but he gives each person their due. And when Roger asks him about that, he says, some of us still have respect for the dead.
Yeah.
Where it's basically like, this is still a person. This was still a life. this is hard, but they deserve more than just me spraying bullets into this room to put them out of their suffering.
Well, and also, like, you have to shoot him in the head, which is, like, something you would have to aim for.
Yeah, which you would have to spray the room like 3 or 4 times to, yeah, I get you.
But no, I actually am saying that plays into it, I think, on some level, which I think I like. Like, again, loved the movie, hated the pacing. I'm on board for it. I don't want you to think I didn't like it.
Anyway, meanwhile, back to the helicopter. The helicopter has landed on top of what I imagine is the police precinct, and they're trying to fill up with gas, but they are ambushed by literal policemen who have turned rogue.
Yeah.
Who are just like, fuck protecting and serving. Every man for themselves. We're loading up all the bullets and guns, and we're getting the fuck out of here on a boat. And maybe we'll take your shit or our helicopter with us. Like, we have abandoned the public, basically.
Well, yeah, they're wearing the same uniform as the other two guys,
right?
As Peter and Roger. So, like, they're from the same unit or, that same division of whatever. Yeah. So, like, they're cops, more or less. That's the point of them, at least in this movie for the metaphor. But
yeah,
I love that, like, when Roger gets there and Peter gets there, they're not like, oh, we got to kill these guys. They're like, oh, hey, guys, how's it going?
Yeah.
Like,
we're also getting out of here.
Yeah. And I think largely because they don't meet them with aggression and they're wearing the uniform and they're not met with aggression, they're able to, like, just not bullshit because they are being very serious. But they're like, oh, yeah, you guys take the helicopter. We don't want it anyway because if you dropped us off, we'd be stranded. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, like, they very, I think, civilly part ways, which I think is also something in this movie. I think there's something to that.
There is, but also it's very clear that they killed the radio operator and they killed the other guy.
Of course.
Who I assume would not go along with their plan.
Of course.
And so they are dangerous, but it's basically like, hey, we won't kill you. You don't kill us. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye. Like, that's how we're going to go.
Yeah, if our needs are not diametrically opposed, or if we can all get what we want out of this and not have to fight, we won't.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what that is.
Yeah. And they do lie about having cigarettes, though, which I thought was pretty funny.
I thought that was so funny. And they really paint that character as a doofus, the guy who's asking everybody for cigarettes.
Oh, yeah. What island? Any island.
The way he, like, almost looks, like, directly dumbfounded down the barrel of the camera made me laugh a little bit. But, like,
I do think an island is the way to go.
I think that's probably the best way to go, yes.
Because as far as I know, zombies can't swim. However, it makes it very difficult to get provisions. I had a question about this a few minutes from now, and I'll save it for a few minutes from now. But think about your ideal zombie scenarios, and we'll talk about it in just a bit.
All right.
So they get up in the helicopter.
Yeah.
They do have cigarettes.
I love that jump cut from the doofus asking for them, them saying
And
no,
then
and then
them
to
lighting
them
up.
lighting up in a, like, flying helicopter. You can't, like, open the doors. Like,
Right.
like there's no way everyone isn't smoking a cigarette is all I'm saying. Like, I would be so
Exactly.
pissed if I was in a fucking shoebox with somebody and they started smoking.
Yeah.
Well, it's the 70s. I think that's pretty much what the 70s was.
Everyone did pretty much smoke.
I mean, yeah, no, you're right. That's why, like, so many people died of lung cancer.
So in the helicopter, Fran is in the backseat with Peter. Steve is flying. Roger is in the other jump seat.
Yeah.
And this is where Fran is suspicious of Peter.
Yeah.
And she finally does ask him, are you leaving anyone behind? Because they are all now facing a reality that they have all left someone to die down there. And they don't know what's going to happen to them. And they have made a conscious decision that whoever's in the helicopter is who we have now, and everyone else is dead. And that's what it is. And he says, yeah, I've left a few brothers. And she just says, real brothers or street brothers? And he's like, I mean, both. But like, 2 of my brothers, one is in jail.
Yeah.
The other is in the NFL. It was at this point that I paused this movie for 15 minutes to write a quick and dirty outline of a zombie movie in a prison. I'll get back to that later. I was very excited about it.
In a prison under an NFL stadium.
Ooh.
Nailed it.
Like the police in Dark Knight Rises?
Oh, I guess that does happen in Dark Knight Rises. Well, not a zombie outbreak, but there is a prison under the NFL stadium.
Oh,
there.
that's right. That's right. You were born in the darkness. Yeah, no, I remember. Okay.
I played linebacker for the, I don't know.
I merely intercepted it. Oh, that was Yoda. I can't. Anyway.
It always sounds like Yoda when I try and do Bane.
I love a good
Yeah.
Bane impression. I've loved it since that movie came out.
It's such a crazy acting choice. that it's in a fantastically good movie that we're all just like, yeah, that's fucking weird, huh? Right? Like, we're just going to let that happen? All right.
What a beautiful voice.
Serious question. Do you think Nolan knew he was going to do that on the day?
First off, that's all dubbed. It's got to be. And then second,
A lot of it had to be dubbed because of the mask. So part of it is the mask issue. Yeah.
but like, I think he was like, I think this sounds cool.
He was wrong.
He had to be. He had to have thought that.
Yeah, I don't think it was like a Nicolas Cage in Peggy Sue Got Married situation where he just showed up on the day and was like, my Huang.
No, I think Nolan was like, yes, this is what I wanted. This is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, well, because he is kind of like a Bond villain. He's just got like a sleep apnea mask on. And it's just like, so certain are you? Like, it's weird.
Finally get a full night's rest.
I was like dying in my sleep and I would just stop breathing. That probably is useless audio. You're welcome. Anyway, so as they fly, they're looking down and they're like, it's everywhere because they're seeing zombies just across fields, much like Night of the Living Dead. And they pass over, they're like, looks like those country boys are handling it, where there's like a bunch of ambulances and then just a bunch of hunters and good old boys and hunting dogs just like, yeah, like, run!
I really loved that this stereotype didn't take place in the South, but felt like it was. You know what I'm saying? Like they're really talking about rednecks, not necessarily Southerners.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like all the tropes that you get for Southerners now, and that made me laugh.
I love that they're like having a cookout to go kill zombies.
You gotta have a cookout.
Yeah.
That's so good. So which brings me to my question, because personally, I have always been of the belief that in a zombie apocalypse, it is safer to live in a rural area because you will probably encounter fewer zombies over time and you can barricade and grow food. But that does put you farther away from supplies versus being in the city where you are close to a lot of supplies, but there is also a lot of zombies there. What are your thoughts? Discuss.
I'm getting as many supplies as I can and going to an island.
It would be an island on a lake?
Yeah. It would have to be if we're talking like close. It'd be like Percy Priest Lake, probably, honestly.
Oh, no. I was hoping to like, okay, there's like little resort islands where there's like cabins and stuff.
Land between the lakes? Hell yeah, bro. Let's do this.
No, that would be better because then you wouldn't have to have hurricanes or anything.
Right. Yeah.
But is Land Between the Lakes a dam-based lake?
Ooh, it might be. We should do some research.
I could go to my dad's cabin. My dad has a cabin up in the mountains. I feel like.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going mountains. Yeah, mountain cabin, 100%.
Because zombies seem like they would have trouble walking up hills.
I just don't think they would go that far. I think they would die before they made that walk. Because that's something that Walking Dead covers that not a lot of other zombie properties cover, is that zombies eventually rot and waste away.
Yeah, they're decaying.
They're actively decaying. And so at a certain point, you could outlive them if they don't keep making more of them.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. The Walking Dead does it to such a degree that like it makes them not at all scary as a concept in that movie.
Because sometimes they're just like half a person crawling on the ground.
So then it just becomes like an American telenovela in a post-apocalypse universe.
Again, the books are so much like if you ever want a good horror property to dive into, the Walking Dead books, which are on the shelf to my left. So good.
I should ask you this. Are the new Walking Dead closer to the books, the newer series where Michonne and Rick end up together? No? Well, too bad, because I'm really digging that.
They're sequels to the show, which made a lot of different choices. The books have a definitive end.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, they decide not to land, which, hey, maybe if they would have landed, they would have lived, but who knows how long the cookout lasts before they get overwhelmed with zombies.
They did not live.
Or start cooking them.
Yeah, the rednecks did not live. Like the whole government goes out towards the middle of this movie.
Yeah, but we also...
I think groups of people live in this.
Yeah, groups of people live. We just don't hear from them.
That could be.
That's the case in every zombie property, is that it's not that people all die, it's that communication breaks down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those communication, architectures and frameworks that we use are tied to government, electric grids, telephone grids. And when those things go out, you don't know who's alive or dead. There could be a lot of people, you just don't hear from them.
And then at what point do you think the government would be like, why don't we just like go out to Wyoming and like hold it down?
Oh, like day 2? Well, it depends, because we have a dedicated survivor program, or a designated survivor program in the United States.
Famously mentioned, it's in that TV show of the same name.
Where we will strategically move move our higher ups at even minor threats of danger. So like we be moving people all the time.
But I could totally see the government being like, okay, society's breaking down.
Yeah.
Zombies are real. Why don't we just put let's just go to the military bases and hold it down.
I do think they would Skynet and go, like, I don't know if you remember from Terminator 3, the one everyone hates. They basically they do that. They go to military bases as they watch everything bomb, and then whatever survives is basically what becomes the new resistance, right? And I think that same thing would basically happen.
I love a good zombie outbreak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they land to refuel, and at first it looks empty, but lo and behold, there are zombies around. So they're all having to kind of fight and kill them, including Peter, who has to kill 2 zombie kids, which I do think is another like little brick out of the wall of, are you a good person? You just shot kids without asking questions. But it's like, but you had to.
I mean, they were clearly zombie kids, though. Like, he was completely justified.
They are famously in George Romero's zombie universe. These 2 are the only 2 that are fast zombies because they run at him, right?
Yeah.
And I think a part of that is just kid actors because they happen to be Tom Savini's niece and nephew.
Oh.
And so I think it's just like, well, kids are going to run, or whatever.
Yeah.
But zombies don't shuffle. I mean, zombies shuffle. They don't run in the Romero universe. So this is 2 of the only ones that ever run.
Super interesting.
Yep. Hey. One between the eyes. He got him like one after the other.
I do feel like Mikey's in this situation and he sees 2 zombie kids running at him. He would have been like, fucking finally.
Yeah, bro. I mean, like, I'd have been like, bah, 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 bah.
So anyway, I started blasting like that meme.
Yeah.
For instance, if Mikey was Rick Grimes in the very first scene of The Walking Dead, the emotional weight of that scene would not be understood because he would have been like, oh, it's a kid. Nice. Boom.
Boom.
First off, as that scientist overtly points out later on in the film, it's the living versus the dead, baby. And
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
the dead.
Yeah.
That is it.
And so zombies my preferred awfulness if we have to pick one because like you get to murder everything. Slow zombies. It's still terrible. I'll still probably die, but at least there's a chance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you get to murder a bunch of zombie kids who are just stumbling around.
They're just ambling down the street, just begging to be run over.
Yes. Anyway, they all make it back to the helicopter. They all take off. But now they're like, we don't even have that much gas. There wasn't that much there. Where the fuck do we go? We can't make it to Canada. And we got to either find another place to fuel or a place where we can chill out for a bit.
Yeah.
And that's when they fly over the mall. And they're like, well, let's at least land on the roof because they can't get on the roof. So we can at least regroup and not be in the air wasting fuel while we do it. Once they're on the roof, they look down into the mall through all the little glass pyramids and they find essentially the back area, like the security section of the mall that's not really connected to the sales floor of the mall. And they've noticed that most of the zombies are only on the first floor and can't get through the gates of the stores. So they bust out those windows.
Yeah.
They drop down into the security portion. They kind of clear it out. They stack some survival supplies. There's food. There's everything here. Great. They can at least take a breath for now. But Roger and Peter are like, okay, we're safe, but this is a fucking mall.
Yeah.
So like we could get tons of stuff. Like we could potentially be safe for a long time if we play our cards right, if we use the resources we have to figure out how to comfortably survive until it's safe for us to leave. Much like when we went home to our houses with too much toilet paper and we're like, this is enough until it's safe for me to leave. And then when we emerged from our homes 2 years later, like it was a whole different story.
So you're the ones who stored up on all the toilet paper.
No, we had ordered some the week before, so we had some. And then while I was out, I found some. I only bought one set because I was like, I know other people need it. I'm not going to stack up. And then when we found out our friends did not have it, we traded it with them for things that we didn't have. So we had like a whole weird barter system going on.
That's how much society broke down for COVID, guys. We were bartering toilet paper.
Yeah, but also I was now home full time for the first time.
Great.
And with a whole house of groceries and all the time in the world to make all the bread that I wanted to. Like when I left the office, my boss at the time, the woman who worked right above me was like, what are you going to do for 2 weeks? And I was like, I'm going to make so much artisan bread. Because again, we thought it was only going to be 2 weeks. And like months later when I was making cheese and growing my own vegetables, it devolved. But people would like see on Instagram, they're like, where are you getting all this food? And it was because me and all of my former Sur La Table coworkers had like a barter trading system of like, okay, you make bread, you make this, you make that, and then we all trade them together. It worked out.
I just went to Kroger. It was fine.
They were out of everything. That was, I don't know how much that happened with you guys, but I have pictures.
I mean,
of just,
for toilet paper, which is what initially started this conversation, you couldn't get that anywhere, but you could get like food and stuff. But like, I found my secret during COVID to get toilet paper during that shortage was there was a gas station close to my house that would sell a little 4-pack. And no one thought to go there. And I went there like 4 times to get toilet paper, and they always had it.
So we ran out of just food.
Yeah, we didn't.
Just empty grocery store shelves. And so there was like no bread, there was like no peanut butter, but there was also no flour. So like I had some restaurant connects so I could order 25-pound bags of flour. So we would have restaurant-sized bags of flour that we would A, parcel out to friends, but B, because I had to make all of our bread for weeks because there was no bread.
Yeah.
It did not exist. So, yeah, it was a wild time.
It was.
Anyway, so they're like, we're going to go out into the mall. You're going to hear some shooting, but they're like, we're going to go kill some of the zombies to clear out what we need to clear out and get the lay of the land. So they go to what I kept calling the boiler room, but it's just whatever the back room. I don't think there's actually a boiler there, but
yeah, it's something like the generator room or something.
Something like that. But they find keys and walkie-talkies and a map. And later, Steve will find a binder with the like duct system map too. But they turn on the music and everything, which unfortunately also turns on the escalators, which means the zombies can be on both floors.
Yeah.
But it means that they can find their way to the department store. The department store, much like ours typically, have their own escalators between their 2 floors, but they also have gates, which means through the department store, they can get up and down without encountering any zombies. So
it gives them a way to like get around to the bigger locations, but like if they want to go to a smaller location, they can't.
Yeah.
Without experiencing zombies.
Right. They go and they unlock the big department store. They have to try a bunch of keys, but they finally get in. They lock themselves in, but they have drawn attention to themselves. The zombies now know they're in there. But they go shopping. They fill up all the stuff they need. They get a wheelbarrow and they're like, well, how are we going to get this back? Idea. They go downstairs to attract all the zombies downstairs. Then they go back upstairs through the department store to come back out to then try and get back.
It was a really smart plan. Like, I really thought it was great and very well thought out.
It is. And they use this same plan a few different times to basically draw them one place so they can go another place.
I thought it was hilarious when he like takes the wheelbarrow to a certain spot and then just goes back and then draws the zombies back there so they can sneak to that spot and then they're safe.
Right.
I was like, that's genius.
Yeah, it was genius. This is also where, because one of the zombies does get in, we get the very famous screwdriver to the ear kill.
Yeah.
Which also happens in Cabin Fever, as well as a few other things, but specifically Cabin Fever has one. They do find a passageway over the tops of the stores through the ducts, because what happens is that Steven gets anxious and finds the binder, runs out there, unfortunately draws attention to himself, which is why they have to do the kind of escalator flip again.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they get the cart, they get the guns, they get back to their safety, and they're back into the ceiling, back down into their security portion, and they're like, okay, great. So we have what we need, and they're testing the emergency broadcast network, and they can still see some TV broadcasts. They're drinking Jack Daniels. They are all kind of settling into their normal, but Fran doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And this is where Steve is like, well, she's pregnant.
Bum, bum, bum.
And they're like, what do you want to do about that? Do you want to get rid of it? Which I think in this situation is a valid question, just like people ask about The Quiet Place all the time.
I think that it's a valid question to have with the person who's carrying the child, yes?
Yes, which she does bring up in just a moment.
Yeah, and I think that they do that in this way to point out that it is her ultimate decision. And I think that they had to do it in a very overt way because in society, it was not seen that way.
Yep.
I get it.
It's still not.
I mean, I think if I think in some cultures it is. I think it's not like that everywhere.
I have a less serious but more crass follow-up question.
Please ask
Is
it.
this about whether you'd fuck in the apocalypse? Because I was thinking about that today. Go ahead.
100%. It's not my responsibility if I get somebody pregnant.
Okay, that's callous.
We just said it was the woman's choice page. What are we talking about? I'm just empowering women.
I'm just saying, just take precautions so we don't have to make that choice. And there's many ways to take precautions to do that.
Yeah, like condoms still exist in the apocalypse.
And they're easy to carry and they're small. But even then, there's also reusable types of birth control also available, things like diaphragms
Pull it
and
out.
any number
Yeah,
of other
absolutely.
things, or pull out.
Yeah, it's riskier, but in a pinch.
At a certain point, you will run out of condoms. So, like,
Yeah.
you know.
That's right. But like Peter pipes up and he's like, hey, though, for real, though, if you want to get rid of that baby, I can do it. And I was like, he's around my age. Should I know how to get rid of a baby? Like, that's not knowledge that I have, you know?
Okay, we're in dark history.
Yeah, a lot of people who were not doctors learned how to perform that for underground abortion rings. There's like a lot of great stories about it that have been produced in the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
One of them takes place in Chicago. I can't remember the name of it though.
And also, most of the things they would have needed to do it exist in a shopping mall.
Yeah.
So that could have very well been a thing that would have happened. Now, also, she is early. She is not very far along. She is like just out of her first trimester they established.
Yeah.
And so there would have been way more options because it's early.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, this is 1978. So like people did have ways. Now, could that have resulted in her death? Absolutely.
It did occasionally, yeah.
It does a lot. That's part of why the laws that we made existed until people ruined it.
It wasn't, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a terrible time. I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do love that Steve goes over to talk to her and she just says, oh, are you done making all of your decisions?
Yeah.
And that's the first thing out of her mouth. I was like, that's right, Fran.
I was like, hell yeah. And he's like, I thought you were sleeping. And she's like, I wasn't fucking sleeping, you bitch. Like,
I sleep with one eye fucking open because I'm a woman in the 70s. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that, but like, she does stand up for herself, which I like.
Yeah.
She said, close your fly, boy.
Oh man, Mikey. I love it. Never change.
But in this scene, she also is like, what are our other options? We should not stay here. And he's like, well, we have everything we need here. And she's like, but that's a prison too.
Yeah.
This idea of like comfort and complacency is a prison.
Yeah.
In its own way.
How do y'all feel about that? I would hold it down in this mall.
I'd hold it down in the mall probably. Well, I don't know. I would be more scared of raiders.
I think that it is insane that at the end of this movie, they have to leave to lower the gates. Why were the gates ever not lowered? Like, you never want them to be open at all.
No, the gates in the stores.
I know.
So,
like, why wouldn't you just close them?
because they would go into the
Every
stores.
day they walked
Yeah.
around the mall and shopped.
They walked around the mall and shopped.
I guess.
In like the last section, yeah.
I mean, to answer the question, I probably would hold it down.
If you were more safety conscious, probably, but they were like complacent and consumerist.
I know, that's what the movie, I like.
Complacency is their prison.
That's what I like. And her saying that, but that's a prison too, like, she's right. I probably still would have held it down at the mall.
Now,
but
I think the most dangerous time in the apocalypse is probably like the first 6 months to a year.
yeah.
Yes.
So like if you could hold it down, which they could have held it down in the upstairs for a long time after the raid.
Yeah.
Well, no, because zombie what's his face opens the door or whatever.
No, yeah, he opens the door. They get in. I think once the raid happens, they gotta leave. In fact, I feel like they should have left before the raid happened.
they
I think they should have
absolutely
cut their
should've.
losses and left. Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, like they should have plotted. They had the helicopter. They had the mileage. They had.
But they got too complacent. Like, that's
Yes.
exactly what the problem, like, that's exactly what the movie's trying to say, right?
and they could have had a backup play. They could have set up a backup shelter.
Yeah.
But I love the metaphor of the movie, even though I did just say, like, I would hold it down in the mall. Because I feel like the movie is saying, hey, even if you are
In a real apocalypse, I don't give a fuck about a metaphor. I'm trying to stay alive here. So if I had to be in those vents for 4 months, I'll do it.
Exactly. I'm just trying to explain why, like, I like it in the movie,
Yeah.
even though I would do like what it's saying not to do, because the point they're trying to make is like, even if you're in a comfortable class, let's say it that way, your struggle is everybody's struggle. You are still sort of fighting the same thing everyone in the world is fighting, even though you feel comfortable now.
Right. The danger doesn't go away just because you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
Yes.
and if you don't address those social ills, it will affect you.
Yeah, it's when they came for so-and-so, I
Yes.
said nothing until they came for me.
Yes.
Until the zombies breached the mall.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know, at work, I used to train people on like our physical holds and safety stuff inside, because like an acute psychiatric facility has a level of risk.
Yes.
Like, life has a level of risk, but like,
Yes.
I was like, the moment you feel safe here, that's the moment something bad happens to you. Because I was like, you cannot be complacent. You have to be diligent and like looking around, head on a swivel. Like, your safety is your responsibility. And people don't like that. They think that you can just be in a place and be safe.
Yeah.
You can feel safe, but feeling safe and being safe are two different things, and feeling safe is not real.
Yeah.
I love that.
What I do love also in this scene is we're hearing their TV
Yeah.
go through all of the announcements, and they're talking about experiments with hallucinogen, but we've also done crop dusting, and that seemed to hurt the people, not the zombies. So it's all the things that they've tried, but they go to sleep. The next day, we get a bit of a mini montage of like that news broadcast of like, here's what we know. They have some sort of instinctual memory where they go back to doing the stuff they used to do as people. It is pure instinct.
God, so we would just be sitting here like, on a Zoom call for all eternity.
Well, but so do our heroes in this movie when they get
Yes.
safety.
But are they heroes or are they the bad guys? Oh my
Protagonist maybe is a better
God.
word, but they're definitely not bad guys in my eyes.
They're not the bad guys. The Raiders are definitely worse guys.
Yeah, they're called the Raiders.
Yeah, I've met Raider fans. Yeah.
Raider Nation coming at you.
Raider Nation. Hey, don't mess with them, man. Anyway, I do love that in this scene, they are trying to eat the mannequins at the mall.
No one said zombies were smart, baby.
No, I know. It just makes me laugh every time. And I also love that whenever they show the zombies around the mall, it's just like fun little circus music, like.
Muzak.
I don't know why it makes me laugh every time, but it does.
It is a little campy. Like, it's a little too on the nose, you know?
Love it.
And it makes it silly in my eyes.
It does. It was meant to be. Like, George Romero is a funny guy. I think one of the sad things that they did not do in the new one is to have it be Muzak and have them be wandering under like Unbreak My Heart, which used to play at the mall I worked.
wanna push you down. Well,
I will.
Yeah.
Well, I will. The mall I worked at as a teenager used to play Closing Time when the mall would close.
Hell yeah.
So like every night at 9 p.m. it was just like closing time, open. And like if it was that or just like slow sax versions of songs, I would have died. It would be so fun.
It's like Kenny G's greatest hits.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Or if this happened at Christmas and they just had to listen to Christmas music forever.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I was like, man, this would just be 90s alt rock, and I would fucking love it.
Anyway, but they're like, they got to be destroyed on sight. Like, they are dead. You're alive. Is what it is. Ain't your grandma no more. You got to shoot her. I'm sorry. She's like half mushroom now.
You do.
Anyway, we cut to, they're on the roof and they're looking out over like the parking lot and all of kind of the adjacent lots. And they see a whole lot of BP oil semi-trucks. And they're like, wait a second, we can block some of the mall entrances with the semi-trucks. That way less zombies can get in. We trap the ones that we have in here and we shoot all the ones we have. And then bye-bye zombies. There's no more zombies.
Yeah.
This is now our fortress.
Yeah. Fortress that is like well stocked, you know?
Yes.
Well, what's her face? What's her name?
Fran.
Fran is like, that seems like a lot of really dangerous work for like not a great payoff.
Well, she says, I want to be included in the plans. And I think one of the plans should be that I learn to fly the helicopter and we all fly the helicopter. Because if you die, we're trapped here and we may need to escape.
First indication she was hoping he was going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, she saw Peter.
we all did.
She was like, he's real tall. You know what I'm saying?
He is very tall.
Dude, him standing next to Roger makes me laugh. And not that Roger's like that short, but there's one shot where Peter's closer to the camera and he looks like it's like David and Goliath, man. It's so funny.
It's this series when they riff on each other about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But he's also like even keel. He's got a calm, cool demeanor.
He's like a teddy bear. I mean, unless he's like
Yeah.
having to defend himself against zombies. But yeah.
Well, but he's smart. He's not reactionary. He plans and he does things methodically. I think he's the most likely to keep you safe in this scenario.
Yeah.
You always want to be, wary of the wild card. So they do decide to do this. She's going to be on the roof providing coverage with the gun. He's going to fly the helicopter to cover them from the sky.
Yeah.
So they do one round of trucks. Great. They go back to do the second one. And when Roger is trying to hotwire the second truck, out come the zombies. And unfortunately, Peter is too far away. He doesn't see them. The helicopter has to try and warn him. So he ends up having to drive and help. But by the time he's able to shoot the zombie with a very classic, like, get the head up so I can shoot it, which is also done in Shaun of the Dead.
But you say very classic, but like this movie is the originator of that.
Yes.
This is the classic.
This is the classic.
Which I think is so cool. Like this started all that.
Yeah. So he puts the head up, he shoots, but that means he gets covered in zombie viscera, which I think is what starts to make him go insane.
I thought it was the bite.
Well, he doesn't get bit yet.
Oh, that's right. That's the next time they do this. You're right.
I think he has seen the enemy, and the enemy is, I see no point in this.
Yeah, that could be. So he does wipe his face. It is magically clean for one take and then bloody again, which is pretty fun.
It's funny, though, because it's when he kills the zombie that was like about to get him or whatever. He finally gets free of the lady who was on top of him, and he shoots that one. And as he pulls the gun up, blood on his face. Shoots, you get a shot of the zombie's head blowing up. Cuts back to him, no blood on his face.
No blood
and
at
I thought
all.
it was funny that it was...
There should be double blood.
Yeah, I should be. That's my point. Like, he should have more blood on his face, but no, he has no blood.
Yeah, none at all.
You shoot one zombie, blood on your face. Shoot a second zombie, clean face.
There you go. And Peter at this point is like, let's cut and run. Let's park this other truck and then we'll attempt this another day. And he's like, no, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And we're doing as many as we can do because now he's crazy. So they do block the entrance. He hops back in the other truck to go do the other round, but he forgot his bag. So he has to go back and they have to pick off a bunch of zombies. But this is how he gets bit on his leg.
Yeah.
So they do get him inside with the wheelbarrow and everything. They go to the gun store. They grab bullets, a whole bunch of ammunition, guns, everything. But of course, it's Steven, Flyboy, and Peter has to tell him not to shoot in the gun store.
Yeah.
Because it'll ricochet. And he's like, fine. But now they're armed to the teeth. They go to the department store. They get as much first aid stuff as they can get. I assume there's also probably some sort of, pharmacy or something in the mall.
Yeah.
But they go to the hardware store. They get as many tools as they can get. They start trying to bandage him up. But now they realize that they have to get rid of the other zombies in the mall to clear it out like they planned. So they're going to use the car to get him around. So they have to break down, get him into the car where a zombie just sticks their finger into his newly bit leg.
I hate it.
It's gross.
Yeah.
But they hotwire the car. They drive it to one side to attract all the zombies there. They lock them out if they can. And whoever stays in, they drive to the other way, lock out who they can lock out. And then, as Peter says, they go hunting. Whoever is left, they're now going to hunt.
Yeah.
So they go hunting. They shoot all the zombies. And there is a very kind of somber moment where all of the zombies are laid out and they just look like dead humans.
Yeah.
Like just dead bodies.
They are.
Because that's what they are. And this is where Peter says they're just us. But so they stack them all up in one of the closets. They get a bunch of medical supplies. And this is where they have to start giving Roger morphine because Roger is clearly dying of his injuries over the next few days.
Yeah. It does take, I think, up to 3 days because that's what Peter says. He's seen a lot of people who have been bit before and it takes them no more than 3 days to turn.
Yeah. But in that 3 days, they also do something that I think is really smart and build a fake wall in the mall.
I thought that was really smart too. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And the only reason it comes back and they do have to leave is because Flyboy knows instinctually and goes back through it.
Yeah.
But man, that would have worked.
That would have worked. It reminded me of, there was a zombie web series back in the day when I was in college, and they are living on a reality show film set after the apocalypse. But one of the things they do is just build a maze.
Nice.
So that the only way for zombies to get towards them is to enter the maze, and then they pick them off from the maze.
Yeah. Perfect.
It was great.
Tower defense. Got it.
Yeah, basically tower defense, yes. So, meanwhile, Fran is sick, morning sickness, any number of things. She's just not feeling great. getting more and more pregnant.
Yeah.
But they basically, for those 3 days that Roger's still alive, go shopping. And this is one of the longest montages in the movie, is them multiple just shopping, but also finding no meaning in it. They don't care. They're like getting haircuts. They're going to the shooting gallery. They're just, gathering stuff. And then they hear zombies scratching at the door, still trying to get inside. And Fran is like, they're trying to get us. They want to get us. And Peter just says, no, they want to get in here.
Yeah.
Because this is what they always used to do. And this is where he says, when there's no room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. But they just do what they normally did.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Roger's getting worse, so they have to keep giving him morphine. But he does ask Peter, hey, when I go, please shoot me. I don't want to be walking around like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing. It's like in Starship Troopers when that guy's like, kill me, kill me. I don't want to be eaten alive by this bug, when we're trying to spread democracy in these planets. You know what I'm saying, Mikey?
Good game, man. It's a good game.
So good.
But they give him morphine. He's napping, but Peter says, hey, I'll look after him. Don't worry about it. And he looks at the blanket moving and he just knows.
Yeah.
And as Roger pulls the blanket down, you see that he's turned.
Yeah.
And Peter shoots him. Now, I think it's really interesting that they cut to the next room where Stephen and Fran are, and both of them don't have any questions about the gunshot. They're just sad. But it's almost this idea of neither of us was brave enough to watch it or do it, but at least Peter did it and we didn't have to.
Yeah, I think they're also sad that they're losing a friend.
Sure.
I do agree that they just can't face that in that moment.
Reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they bury him in one of the fake gardens in the mall, which I do love.
I thought that was so funny on some level because,
Yes.
I get that this is supposed to be a metaphor for the world. I get it. But also, we're in a mall and you just dug down into, a basement with mulch in it.
Yes.
I don't know. It was very funny to me. But for the metaphor, it works perfectly.
Yeah. Well, and also, who's going to come back to the mall and be like, nice plants? The world is over.
I guess my point is that's really going to stink in 3 days.
For who?
They live here longer.
Yeah. They have a whole closet of zombies that already stink, man. It's only for them. No one's going to even be there.
Bro, you can bury a body in a shallow grave and it won't stink that long.
There's no animals to come feed on it.
Yeah. You think they don't have lime over there in this mall that have everything else?
They might. They could build a whole cemetery with the sea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have put the zombies in the freezer, for the record.
Yeah, I mean, that probably kept the smell down a little bit, was the fact they were in the freezer. But anyway, they do continue just shopping where they shoot at mannequins for practice. They go on a fancy dinner where they get engaged with wedding rings that they stole while Peter pours one out for Roger.
Is it stealing?
No.
Yeah, I don't really see it that way either.
Fair game. They own this mall now.
Yeah. It is what it is. I did like that, Peter respected Roger and he, does say goodbye to him in a very sort of nice way. Yeah.
But we also cut to, Fran putting on makeup while holding a gun because I think there's a lingering question of whether or not Fran is going to check out or not, and ultimately doesn't, but I think that was always a risk.
Oh, of course.
Whether she tells people about it or not.
Yeah.
But she's also cooking. She makes fondue for them, which I thought was hilarious because it's such a frivolous food. I love fondue, but in the apocalypse, I'm not making fondue. I'm making sandwiches so we can run.
Yeah. I mean, finger foods, baby.
It's the complacency.
Exactly. I think that's the point they're trying to make.
Yes. But this is where they haven't seen a TV broadcast. So she tells him to turn the TV off and he gets up and turns it back on. And in my notes, I just have, this fight isn't about the TV. It's about life. It's about him still having hope that there are other people out there and her being resigned to the fact that there aren't. And this is where she says, what have we done to ourselves? But this is also where she learns to fly the helicopter in the very next scene.
Yeah, and this part, with the fight with the TV and stuff, this is you had to actually show this happening and be this overt with it at the time.
Yeah.
And you just don't anymore, largely because they laid this groundwork for literal culture for us. But it feels silly looking back and revisiting it because I have all of that culture knowledge.
The typical zombie story has been told in so many
Exactly.
it is in the zeitgeist, the pop culture, it is known.
Yeah.
And that's why I said this at the beginning too, but that's why I don't feel like I should be it's stupid. It's so campy and dumb. Because it sort of had to be, and they fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
It's not great. I don't love it, but it's a great movie,
There was probably 3 or 4 years where you would show your friend this movie and they would be like, what is a zombie movie? And then
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
As it spills it out, they're like, oh.
You mean that black and white movie from like 10 years ago?
In fact, this movie still doesn't say the word zombie. It's dead.
No, he does. Peter says it once.
Peter says it once, and that's a reference to Fulci Zombie as well as a few other questionable earlier Italian films about zombies, but referring to the concept of a voodoo zombie usually made with scopolamine. It's a whole thing. We don't need to get into it today, but that's why he's the only one who mentions it.
Yeah.
But nobody on the radio or doctors or anything do.
No.
Oh, no. They just say like the undead or like
The undead. Yeah. Anyway, while they're practicing the helicopter, who should see them but Tom Savini? Oh no, he's here to come do makeup. What are we going to do?
Fucking love.
To be awesome on a motorcycle?
I know. I love seeing Tom Savini show up because I know the body horror that is about to come is going to be solid.
Yes.
And it's great.
going to be solid, and he's going to have a dick gun. It's going to be great.
I do really like seeing Tom Savini in these movies. I think it's super fun that he does this.
Get ready because they make him dress like this character in every film from here on until he retires.
Yes.
I've noticed, and I'm here for it.
He ends up directing the remake of Night of the Living Dead, which we should eventually probably watch.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of these to get through first because it's not necessarily a beloved version, but I do think it's a really interesting version. And I think it's worth watching.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they don't respond to any of the radio communication from the Raiders. But the Raiders are like, look, we're coming. And you had a chance to share with us and you're not, so we're going to come fuck you up, basically. And there's like 20 of them in this van.
It honestly feels a little like their vibe is suburban Mad Max.
Yes.
Like that's sort of what they're doing. They're like roaming around foraging and their safety in numbers with slow zombies, right?
Right.
So they're just sticking together as a group.
Yeah.
And how that group formed over the months it's been since they've been living at the mall, nobody knows, but I'm sure it was violent, right?
Very.
They just seem like they're unhinged. They're very fine taking care of zombies and will kill people to steal their resources.
Yeah, I like to imagine that they were having their own Sons of Anarchy movie somewhere else and then stumbled into our movie's universe.
You mean they were trying to trick women into watching Hamlet? That's all Sons of Anarchy is.
I mean, you didn't have to trick me. I was going to watch Hamlet anyway.
Oh, okay. I get it. No, but I mean, also, these Raiders are not like our new Raiders. These Raiders are just like, they're not there to just murder the people. They're just there to take the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, like, they stayed on the second floor. I don't even think they're going to mess with him until Flyboy came.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. I think they wanted to rob the mall of its resources or as much as they could fit in their saddlebags.
Yeah.
And that's as far as they're thinking.
But, like, nowadays, it's like, go behead the survivors that are here, you know? It's like,
yeah.
No, I don't think they gave a shit. I truly don't think they knew humans were there, you know?
Oh, no, they knew the people in the helicopter, but they're like,
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, they knew they were there, but I think they were like, are you going to stop us from taking your resources? No?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what they wanted was the resources.
And ultimately, Steven's downfall is pride, because you're right. If they had just stayed on the balcony and not said anything, they would have had to get the zombies back out of the mall.
right.
But they've done that once before. Like, there are options for them to do that.
Sure.
But also, I think a lot of the zombies would have followed the Raiders as they left.
Yeah.
But it's Steven saying, no, it's ours. We took it. It's ours.
Yeah.
And that's why he shoots at them of like, we did the work to have this and therefore it's ours to their own detriment. They're fighting each other instead of fighting the greater zombie over resources that are scarce because of the greater zombie.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's like a great metaphor for like a lot of things we deal with still. Yeah.
A lot of stuff. So they go ham in the mall. This fight gets fucking nuts. Now it's war. Tom Savini kills hella shit with a machete.
It's awesome.
Somebody's got a medieval mace. Fucking great.
Hell yeah.
That's what I meant by like the pseudo Mad Max vibes. Like it
Yeah.
is untraditional weaponry too. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, it's whatever you can find.
Yeah.
It goes on a long time.
It
Because
does.
at this point, if you look at and you're watching the movie, you're like, all right, this is the 2-hour mark. And there's still 20 minutes left. And you're like,
Yeah.
of what?
This movie does have more endings than The Return of the King. I agree, Paige.
Yes. Yes. Because they all fight, then they decide, because they start losing people, because now Peter's forced to start picking them off.
Yeah.
Because Steven started it.
He's just trying to help Steven, honestly. Like that's all he's trying to do.
Yeah, he's just trying to help Steven. So they are like, okay, there's somebody here shooting at us. We got what we need. We're going to go. Raiders leave. But as they're leaving, they pick off a few. The zombies eat a few.
Yeah.
This one guy keeps trying to check his blood pressure. Hilarious.
What the that was nuts. Like, the guy with the sombrero really needed to check his blood pressure in that moment. It didn't make any sense.
It was pretty low.
In the 70s, there wasn't a lot to entertain yourself. So you had to push your button on the blood pressure machine.
Right. Now is not the time for that, though, Mikey.
No.
They're not good Raiders.
They're not good Raiders.
No.
But Peter is already up in the vents. That's how he has stayed kind of clear of a lot of the melee. Steven is still down there and has sustained some damage. He's been shot once.
Yeah, one of the Raiders did shoot him before he left. Yeah.
Right. He's in the elevator trying to climb up into the vents, but he can't because he's been shot in the arm. He can't climb up.
I do just want to call attention to the way he grabs his arm with his arm that is not shot. So his hand is holding the bullet wound of the arm that is shot. And then he is climbing and like pushing himself up off the ground. He is using the arm that is shot to move about the place.
Yes.
I thought that was a wild choice.
It was a wild choice, but regardless, he gets trapped in the elevator and zombies bite him enough so that he then turns while in the elevator.
He turns almost immediately because he dies so fast. Yeah.
Because he dies from losing blood. But so he's in the elevator. He will come back later. Meanwhile, Peter gets back to their kind of safe house. And Fran is like, is he with you or is he dead? And Peter's like, I heard some gunshots. He might be alive. We should wait. And Fran is like, no.
Yeah.
Let's fucking leave.
Fran's like, the guy who I needed to show up showed up, so let's do it.
Let's do it.
Peter, you're not a stepfather. You're a father who stepped up.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
I do think it's nice that, like, Peter's like, there's still a chance that he's alive. Let's hold out. We won't put ourselves in any more danger, but if he makes it back to us, then let's leave.
Right.
And I think that's why he wants to stay.
Right.
I also think he's sort of like, maybe at least at this point, passively suicidal, if that makes sense. Like,
yes, I also think he feels guilt for assuming that he died and leaving.
Yeah.
And hopes that in him coming back, he is absolved of that guilt.
I agree. I think the movie shows that when he's like peeling off to go back to Fran, he like struggles with that in the hallway back to that.
Yeah.
To where their like holdup is.
She is pregnant. So he like that's a lot of commitment if he goes back up there.
I do think he ultimately makes the right choice. Obviously, Steve's already dead. We know that. But like, I think that is the right choice even if Steven isn't dead.
Yeah.
Like, Flyboy started this fight. This is his fault. You don't owe him your life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And there's a lady who is pregnant who does need help.
Yeah.
I think he makes the right call. Hard call. He makes the right one.
Anyway, so they wait until the next morning and she's like, no one has come back.
Yeah.
There's no way he would have survived. He would have come back. We got to go. And she's right.
She is.
And they should have gone right then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they do both still survive. Like, this is what I sort of meant with it feels like the Return of the King with how many endings there are.
Yes.
Because they should have left immediately when he got back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they don't leave. They wait until the zombies show up. She climbs out. She gets into the helicopter. He's like, I'm going to stay. I don't want to go. Please go. Save yourself. She waits. She waits for him.
Yeah.
Until literally the last second. He has one last tiny little gun that only has one bullet in it, basically.
It literally is a one-shooter, yeah.
And he's going to shoot himself. But when it comes down to it, he turns and shoots a zombie. And he sees Steve break through that wall. He knows Steve's a zombie. He shoots him too.
Yeah.
And makes his way up to the helicopter in time to get in.
Yeah.
This scene here is a core memory for me of like watching this film as a child. But where were my parents? And just like the first time I watched it and just being like, I just do not want this man to shoot himself. And just being like,
Right,
just
same.
go to the helicopter and begging him.
Same. I felt the same. I was like, man, you were like the only reason anyone lived as long as they did. You've got to stick around. You're the one doing it. You're the one making it work.
Yeah. But they make it into the helicopter. They fly away. And he says, how much fuel do we have? And she says, not much. And he just says, all right. And we end with the zombies on the roof enjoying the sunlight.
And that's the movie.
Now the credits are another montage of consumerism and zombies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the robot chicken music for sure.
Yep.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what did you guys think about the 1978 Dawn of the Dead?
I do love this movie. I really enjoyed it today too, specifically.
I love this film.
Excited to see it in 3D in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I hate the pacing of it. Outside of that, love it. Just because of like what it's saying and honestly like establishing. There's a lot of establishment of like not even just like what zombies are, but like telling like emotional and political stories in horror and like addressing societal issues in horror. Like it starts, not that the horror didn't do that before, but like this kicks off a lot of that. And a lot of people who are making horror movies today, I think, are echoes of this type of thing. And I'm here for it. I love that.
Yep.
Pacing sucks. So if you're like me and like a movie having bad pacing ruins it for you, you probably won't like this. But if you can get through the pacing stuff for a great, well-made, metaphor-heavy movie, you should, because it's great. Anyway, Paige, do you have some fun facts for us?
I do.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
Dawn of the Dead. Fun facts.
Oh, yeah.
So Tom Savini also did the zombie makeup for this movie, and he chose gray for the zombie skin because Night of the Living Dead had been in black and white. So the zombie skin tone was not depicted. He has later said it was a mistake because many of them end up looking blue when the color correction was finished, and that was not the intended effect. So it doesn't hold up great. Although one of the things I do think about that blue tint is that our modern zombies are decaying and a lot bloodier and gorier, and these zombies look more human, and I think that helps the metaphor a little bit.
I think it does.
They look more corpse-like to me, but that just might be a morbid thing, you know?
Well, yes, but like not corpse-like the way Walking Dead does it, where they're like rotted out.
No. Yeah, these look like fresh. We found this person's like 3 days dead.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think they do a little bit of a better job in like Last of Us. They're not quite like they get mushroomy, but when they like first turn, they just kind of look herky-jerky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so extras who appeared in this film, because again, this is a time before you could make crowds of people in computers, so you had to have people. They were paid $1 in cash, a donut, and a Dawn of the Dead t-shirt for their participation in this film.
Awesome.
And most of them were just fans of Night of the Living Dead, excited to be there. A lot of them took photographs of themselves dressed in full zombie makeup in the photo booth in the mall, because this is filmed in a real mall.
Of course, yeah.
And then they would replace the sample pictures on the front of the booth, the like sample ones of like, this is what your photo will look like, with all their zombie ones. So that when the mall reopened the next day, it was all zombies.
Awesome.
So Dario Argento loved George Romero's work and vice versa. So when Dario Argento heard that George Romero wanted to make a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, which had come out a full decade before this, he insisted that George Romero come to Rome to write the script without distractions. And George Romero did, and wrote it in 3 weeks. So that's also how Dario Argento does a lot of the music and stuff for this film as well.
I did see his name
a lot,
which I thought was interesting. Yeah.
And helps cut the European version of the film and helped raise money to make the movie.
Awesome.
But so that's how that happens. The outdoor scene with the hunters and emergency crew was done using local volunteers, and several local hunters just showed up with their own guns. And a local National Guard division showed up in full gear, including a local emergency crew, police, fire, and ambulance, all voluntarily on their time off. So like they just showed up.
That's honestly awesome. I love that.
The MPAA, who can suck a fat dick, as we have established on this show many times.
We have heavily established.
Yeah.
Although it's worth saying again, so absolutely. Agreed.
Of course. They threatened to give this an X rating if George Romero didn't make cuts, but Romero didn't want to cut the film. He was adamant against the rating. And X at the time had the stigma of pretty much only being used for hardcore pornography. So he had to persuade distributors to release this film unrated, even though on all advertising and trailers, there was a disclaimer that said there's no explicit sex in the film, but it was so violent that no one under 17 would be admitted.
If a movie came out with that ad campaign, it would do well today.
Of course it would.
Yeah.
I'd go see it.
Listen, there's no sex, but it's so violent, it's above an R.
Yeah.
Like everyone would be like, oh, hell yeah.
Yes.
I can't wait to see it 7 times.
Which, how wild is it that this was considered too violent? Like this movie we watched today.
Oh, and this is now like not laughable, but like not scary, not shocking at all. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
They showed this to 9-year-olds in 1996.
There you go.
literally 20 years after this movie came out. Your parents were like lulling you to sleep at night with it.
Yeah.
The USA Network created the monster that is me today. That and TNT. Like after Saturday morning cartoons ended, it was horror sci-fi movies all day.
Pretty much.
And if it was raining, I watched them all.
That's how I used to watch Bondathon every Thanksgiving.
That explains those Bond Girl posters.
What's up?
Love it.
This filmed at the Monroeville Mall in the winter of 1977 to 1978 with a 3-week break for the Christmas shopping season so they could put Christmas decorations up and then take them back down.
Wild. Okay, that's awesome.
So that's when they shot the TV studio and a lot of the helicopter shots is in that 3 weeks. When they would film at the mall, they would start filming around 10 p.m. right after the mall closed, and they would have to finish by 6 a.m. The mall didn't open until 10:30, but at 6, the music came on and no one could figure out how to turn it off for the entirety of the shoot. So in some of those zombie scenes, it's just the mall music and they've either replaced it with other sound or they stopped filming before the music came on. There were a handful of bars that stayed open a little bit later that were connected to the mall or right next to it. So Tom Savini has said that he would put makeup on zombies and then while they were waiting to shoot, they would go drink. And so the zombies would come back completely trashed.
I love
and he
that.
said that they would cause all kinds of damage, including a handful of zombies who stole a golf cart and crashed it in the mall.
Oh my! Shit! I that would be so funny if they like caught that on camera. Like I would love. That's so funny.
I'm sure it's somewhere, yeah. But
That's so funny.
the bit where Roger slides down between the escalators was the actor's idea, Scott A. Reiniger.
And he lands that. He doesn't like fall forward. He like lands it on his legs and stands right
Yeah.
back up. He crushes it.
He does. Now, here's something kind of interesting, though. So they slide down those escalators, and a bunch of other crew and cast members did the same. But now all escalators have metal posts at the bottom,
Yeah.
so you can't do it. And so there's a lot of people who question whether or not this movie is the reason that they installed those because they saw somebody do it. And Tom Savini just tells people it is because why not? That's a fun thing.
I could also see like maybe this let people know you could do that. A lot of people started doing that and causing like issues at malls. So that's what caused it.
Probably.
So it isn't exactly responsible, but indirectly responsible. I could see that.
Yeah, one of the funniest parts in this movie for me is that the mall announcements stay on the attention all shoppers.
That made me laugh too, because it is like deep into how long they've been there.
Yes.
And like to have that revealed like 4 months into their stay there, that just goes off every so often was so funny to me.
Hilarious. And that is the voice of Christine Forrest, George A. Romero's wife.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I hope they found those hard candies.
Me too, man. All you had to do was buy $5 worth of shit and you got a bag of hard candies.
A bag of hard candies. Now, the actor who played Roger and Ken Faree have a disparate height that they joke about in the movie, but just for your reference, Scott H. Renger, Reinger, I think it's Renger. He is 5'7", and Ken Faree is 6'5". It's like when Armando Torres and I try to take pictures together. It don't happen. It's bad.
It's the best.
So Galen Ross, who plays Fran, refused to scream during the film because she thought that would make her look weak.
Interesting.
And once she told George A. Romero that that's how she felt, that she felt this was a woman trying to be strong in the face of fear and that would reduce her to like a damsel in distress, George Romero said, great, and never asked her to scream again. It was just like, perfect, you've made your actor choice. We're going to go with it, which I think is really interesting.
And commend him for like being like, no, that is a good idea.
Yeah.
Don't scream. Love it. Let's roll it.
The raiders are actually played by volunteers of the local chapter of the Pagans Motorcycle Club. And the motorcycles that they ride are their own.
Of course.
I think a lot of them were just like, you want me? I get to ride my motorcycle in the mall? Hell yeah. Yeah.
Paige, when I had a motorcycle, I would have done this.
Of course.
And believe me, I have plenty of leather jackets that would suffice.
Of course.
I cannot. We need to talk about the thought of Todd in a biker gang because it's making me giggle uncontrollably.
For the record, I just had a Harley. I was not in a gang.
I can't even imagine you riding. I can imagine you in the sidecar with the Tommy gun.
Okay, so just let me clear this up. Didn't have a gun while I was riding my motorcycle.
But you could have.
I mean,
Wow.
I also didn't have a sidecar.
What a loser.
But no, I mean, I rode for like a good number of years, almost died 3 times. And I was like, I will not continue doing this. So I sold it.
People love that stuff. I will not do it because everyone I know who's ever like ridden consistently has like either had a serious injury or almost died and was like, I can't do this anymore.
I had a very close friend in San Diego die, and my other friend who lived here still does, broke his back. So like, they're very dangerous. That's the reason I stopped. I'm not saying that like motorcyclists are some of the safest drivers out there, but if the car next to you makes a mistake and doesn't see you, you're dead.
Yeah.
And like, you can be the safest driver and that happens.
When Jake and I met, he had a motorcycle. And one of the first things he did after us meeting was he was already like, we met and he's like, I'm going to sell it because a friend just got in like an accident or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was like one of the first things we did together. It was like, we had to like go and like move the motorcycle. It was like a whole thing.
What he should have done is been like, this might be too soon to tell you this, but you convinced me to get rid of my motorcycle because I have something to live for, babe.
Because not now, I got something to live for. Anyway, so George Romero had wanted Tom Savini to do the makeup effects for Night of the Living Dead, but he could not do it at the time because Tom Savini was serving in Vietnam as a combat photographer. But by this time, he was back, and his recent Vietnam experience, he says, played a part in his visualization of the graphic and gory effects.
That does not surprise me. Yeah.
Pretty fucked up.
I would really be sad to find out that Tom Savini isn't a good guy. Like, I like him on that level that if it turned out he wasn't a great dude, I'd be sad about it.
The one time I met him at Monsterpalooza, he was very nice.
Awesome. Yeah.
I don't know.
I've heard he's very nice.
Everything I've heard about him makes me like him more. Like, that's sort of what it is.
Everyone I've talked to that has met him has had similarly nice things to say.
Yeah.
I'll end on this one because I think this one's really fun.
Okay.
Because people have asked George Romero what kind of direction he would give his zombies to achieve what has become the classic quintessential zombie shuffle. And he says, oh, you can't give them direction because if you tell 100 people dressed as zombies a specific thing to do, they will all do the same thing. You just have to tell them all to be dead so that they do their own thing. And he says that his favorite is Steven from this movie, who has the gun like hanging on his hand as he shuffles. I fucking loved that shit.
Bro does such a physical performance. Like, that gun would have hurt his finger.
Yeah.
Because it's not a light thing. Even if it's a prop gun, there's some weight to that. And it's like flailing about his finger. And he's walking on the side of his ankle for one of his feet. Like, that guy is giving it.
Or has moved his shoe, but like,
sure, it could be
amazing.
That shoe. But still, it looks great. He really gives it.
But those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. And it's not going to be a regular box office segment just because of when this movie came out. We don't have some of the information, but I can give you this information. So its initial release for this movie actually happened on September 1st, 1978. And it was like a 119-minute cut created to premiere in Italy under the title Zombie. And Dario Argento was there for that. The same cut would open in Japan on March 27th of 1979. And then they made a 126-minute cut for the English language version, and that premiered in the United States in April 7th, 1979. So if you see like release dates for this movie, it might say 78 or 79, and that's because it premiered internationally first and then in the US. And it actually didn't get like a wide release until United Film Distribution picked it up, and they only released it in 17 like Pittsburgh area theaters, and then eventually were like, oh, this is going to do well. Let's roll it out wide over the course of that month. So it didn't get like a big release initially. they kind of had to roll it out, which, I mean, it's good for them that they did because they spent, what do you guys think the budget was for it? Let's start there.
So I've heard multiple different things. I might have to recuse myself because I probably know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
$2 million?
Okay. So, and Paige, I saw many different things. So tell me if this is what you saw. I saw it could be as low as $500,000 or as much as $1.5 million.
That's
that
what
was
I
like
saw.
sort of what I saw. But the number I saw listed in most places was $640,000. So again, I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I used when like adjusting for inflation, just because it's sort of ish in the middle of that range, and it was the one I saw listed on most sources. Anyway, but if you adjust that for inflation, that's just over $3 million today. Which, if you look at the movie, does it look great for movies now? No, it looks like a new employee orientation video.
At the worst mall ever.
Yeah, exactly. But like at the technology of the time, it does look great, for that amount of money. Anyway, but I don't have like the week over week breakdown of how this movie did. I do know that in the States and Canada, it grossed $1.5 million and then went on to make $49.9 million internationally. So it made a total of like right at $55 million during its release, which is like really good. That would be roughly $261 million today. So that's your box office. So Mikey, do you want to hit us with that scary scale?
Yeah, our scary scale listeners, scale of 1 to 10, how scary we found the film, we watched it today. Our 1 example is Ghostbusters, and our 10 example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Paige.
I'm going to give this a 2 for the cold open because that opening scene, having lived through COVID, is genuinely scary.
I was going to give it the same for very similar reasons.
I like that. And I'm going to give it a 1.
Yeah, you've seen it a bunch.
A bunch. So that's our scary scale.
Well, this week, you guys made us watch Dawn of the Dead. What are you making us watch next week?
This month's theme is disasters.
Yes.
And so we have done 10 Cloverfield Lane, but we've never done the original Cloverfield. So we're going to be doing the original Cloverfield.
I remember this when it was in the theaters. I didn't go see it, but I remember the trailers were very scary. And I was like, fuck that. I will never watch that movie. So I guess I'm breaking that promise to myself. But your homework for next week is to watch Cloverfield and then report back for that episode. So, Mikey, do you have a review for us to read? Well, while you're looking one up, let me read a review that someone literally just left today on our The Orphanage episode. And that is from Erin. And she says, I love y'all every day. But the orphan jokes and then the tinker these balls with the late night energy, I love each of you every day is what that says. I don't remember those two things specifically from that episode.
I said tinker my balls.
Okay.
It was me. It was me. Sleep deprived me.
I knew it wasn't me.
And then Paige and off went off on like, they made the orphans extra sad,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about that.
which I stand behind.
Anyway, we didn't even start recording that episode until like almost 11, I think, p.m. our time. So it was hella late night energy. Sorry about that. Glad you enjoyed it. And thank you for your comment. But Mikey, whose review are you going to read this week?
I'm going to do K-Dubs 81.
Hit it. What does K-Dubs 81 have to say?
Love this pod.
Why, thank you.
They say, this podcast is awesome, starting with Paige's debut from Conjuring 2.
Agree.
Even when the movies are terrible, I enjoy this throuple. They crack me up. 5 stars.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much for that awesome 5-star review. And if you want to have Mikey read your 5-star review or me read your Spotify comment, leave us one of those things and we'll do that. So guys, if you like this show but want to hear this power throuple on another movie review show about romance and romantic comedies, check out Romancing the Pod, where Mikey, Paige, and I break down and make fun of romantic movies. It's a lot of fun, guys. Check it out. If you want to follow us on social, please do. We are at Horror Virgin or online at horrorvirgin.com. If you want to follow us all individually, you can do that as well. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Twitter or Rampage Wesley everywhere else, including TikTok. Mikey is at mrandolph24 and I am at Todd J. Awesome. If you like the show so much and you want to help financially support it, please do by going to patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where you can get a lot of great levels and a lot of great stuff like bonus episodes, director's cut episodes where they're a little bit longer and you get them actually a day earlier than the regular feed drop. We do a lot of great things like listener requests and stuff like that. So guys, check out the Patreon and help support the show.
If you want to financially support me, but not Todd, just look me up on Venmo.
If you can't financially support the show, that's understandable. That's fine. But if you want to hang out with us on the daily, join the Facebook group at facebook.com/group/horrorvirgin. We also link it like once a week, so just find it there and join the awesome Facebook group. Literally, we're in there talking every day. It's awesome. And guys, we got a P.O. box. So if you want to send us some love letters or whatever you might send to a P.O. box, it's actually not a P.O. box. It's like a regular street address. It's pretty awesome. It's 6688 Nolensville Road, number 108-34, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027. So send us some stuff.
Yeah.
And if you want to check out our Twitch stream, we're at twitch.tv/ToddAwesome, where we will be playing horror video games. So if you have always wondered what it would be like to watch me get scared, you can now do that on Twitch while I play these horror games. It's twitch.tv/ToddAwesome, guys. Check it out. It's a lot of fun for you. Not a lot of fun for me. This episode was brought to you by Tia, and Tia's teenager's been driving her crazy. So how is Tia's teenager driving her crazy this week?
She always wants to go to the mall.
She keeps playing that song that was in How I Met Your Mother. Let's go to the mall.
Oh.
And listen, I get it. It's catchy, but after a while, it gets annoying. This episode also brought to you by Jonathan. And Jonathan wants me to make you guys watch some videos. Oh, yeah. And I haven't gotten one since the ventriloquism video that he sent us last week, where I revealed that that's like the most like magic thing I think exists in the world. And got made fun of quite a bit for that. Anyway, but Jonathan, thank you for the support. Send us some more videos so we can watch them. We now return you to another episode of the Patreonicals.
Welcome back here. We're in the real world. It's a Terminator post-apocalyptic thing.
I don't know if I can believe we're in the real world, Mikey. You've tricked us before.
I've tricked you before. So they're in like a desert of skulls, and then there's just a group, and they're kind of wandering around.
The Skull Dunes, Paige. They're wandering around the Skull Dunes.
Yeah, like you do in Terminator World.
Right.
Yeah. They see lights in the distance, and it's like a city. So I forgot. Are Natasha and Karun still crying? I think they are. Because I don't think they're blue anymore, but we don't know. Are they blue?
They're not blue nor bleedod and blah.
Yeah. That took a second, but I got there.
I'm so happy we can do these late at night.
So they picked up 2 machine guns. They're walking and crying and holding hands. They're like, did our children ever exist? And then everybody's like, God, they're so emotional.
It's so sad. They are definitely the emotional core of our story.
Are they? Is there one?
I don't think there is one, but they have the most traumatic story. Like, literally, their whole planet's been either destroyed or never existed. And same with their kids.
Kate's getting her psychic powers back. There's 2 skulls floating next to her as she's like testing out the limits. She's trying to get her power going again. They walk into the city. There's a lot of like people hiding. They look like they've got like ratty clothes and stuff. And they're like, new survivors.
Is that their accent? Hang on.
I don't know.
Where are they from, Mikey? New survivors.
That's not. We don't. This is the end of the world. See, there's no survivors here.
Apparently, Judgment Day happened in like the 1920s, so everyone talks like that still.
We only have radio plays now.
No notes.
It's good to see you, Governor. Welcome to these pots.
And then on the screen, Evil Matthew and Isaac. There's a big brother screen. They're like, it's time for bed, everyone. Everyone get in bed and like go to your homes. It's curfew. And then there's like, we don't want to, they're like, you have to come in our house. Like we have a big house. Just all of you come inside. And so like these people come inside, and Laura talks to them, and she's like, Laura's still a computer program. She's on like an iPad.
She's like, but like she's like it's like Cortana vibes. You know what I'm talking about?
She's definitely Cortana vibes.
But not like a
Vixen Avery's like wearing her
hologram
on like a necklace.
Okay,
she's got an iPad necklace on.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, so she's walking around like Flavor Flav, but it's just like an iPad, not a clock.
Yeah, with like a red face on it, like
Ooh.
Face from Nick Jr.
That means she's mad.
Anyway, so Laura's like, this is our group. We just awoken from the pods, and then like the survivor is like,
are they in Love Is Blind?
No, the pods of like where they keep people for their human batteries, like the Matrix, in the simulations.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, I'm the one not paying attention.
And so they're like, yeah, we just awoken from the pods, and like all cities in the world are like this now, or that I know about. Isaac and Evil Matthew have have conquered everyone with their robots, and the Sunny D virus, they're still zombies that
Oh my
roam
God.
the wasteland.
The Sunny D virus is back?
Yeah, it's still there.
Wow.
Paige, that was 4 years
Before my
ago.
time.
Yeah, it was.
Go back.
That was like base reality. That was like Ravenous time period.
Well, and then Kate's like, who else would have been here this long? Anyway, they're like, there's rumors of a free city.
Oh my God.
Dinosaurs.
Oh my God. Are we
Dinoto-
going back to
Dinotopia!
Dinotopia?
I hurt my throat.
Have another snow cone, Mikey, or gurgle bourbon. All remedies I've seen you try to use to help your sore throat.
It's called holistic medicine, okay?
Being an alcoholic who likes snow cones is not therapeutic or medicinal.
So Wes was like, I buried my jet ski, and he was a jet ski. He's like, I'm no longer a jet ski. What am I if I'm not a jet ski? And she's like,
We've all been there, Paige. We've all had that
yeah.
quiet thought to ourselves.
No, it's just me and Owen Wilson being like, I think I used to sell jet skis.
I get that reference.
That one was just for Mikey.
So Laura's like, you have to find the jet ski within you. And then Aaron's like, I don't like having a bow and arrow anymore. Can I have something else? And everybody's like, look, find a skill or whatever. Like, you can do it. Like, work on that.
I'm sorry you've been laid off from the bow and arrow factory. Would you like to learn how to code to reprogram these Terminators?
Yeah. So Bo Easy, still a Florida man. He turns to Allie, who's not a mermaid, and he's like, hey, so I didn't fuck a fish. Like, do you want to go upstairs and like consummate this real relationship now that you're a real human lady?
That does sound like what they call in Florida foreplay.
Floor play, if you will.
Hell
'Cause
yeah.
It's Florida.
Pelvic floor play. Oh, sorry. No, yeah, you're right.
So she's like, no, or whatever. But then Jeremy's like, he ends up warming up a pot of tea with his laser eyes. He's like, I've still got fucking laser eyes. He's like, this is fucking awesome. I'm Cyclops. And it's not fake. And they're like, well, we don't know.
But
Bum, bum, bum.
Paige, could he also just be a Terminator in a human disguise?
Ooh,
That did happen in Terminator 4.
there's a lot of Terminator. Mr. Rage Bomb now looks like a human/bomb hybrid, a Danny DeVito, if you will.
So
Love
anyway,
that.
he started
Love that.
blasting.
Can I offer you an egg in this trying time?
I'm Bomgo Gablovian.
Bomb go.
Oh my god. Sexcalibur has made a new glove out of parts they're finding out of the Terminators they killed when they arose. So he's making a glove out of men's. Speaking of men's, Terminators have gotten up and are patrolling outside.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Men's are patrolling outside. No one's allowed outside during the curfew. Madeline and and Edward have lost their ability. They have no abilities, and so they're kind of sad about it. And they eat some, gray human food paste that this world now have, and they don't like it. But then outside they hear a noise, and a house gets crashed in, and it's Sunzi, an evil laddie child, just straight up pulling a random person out of their home and murdering them because he just enjoys killing.
Jeez.
And they're like, I hope we make it through the night. And that's the end of the episode.
Holy shit, that ended on a dark note. It was like Return of the Jedi, except the Jedi was Dinotopia. But I guess we'll have to see where that goes on another episode of The Patreonicals.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it ookie spooky.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Bye. I think Tom Savini kicks ass, nerds.